Hello and welcome to Inside the Studio. My name is Pete.
And I'm Dan.
And we're here from Steadfast Collective. This is episode 1 of our new series of Inside the Studio.
Yep.
So we are going to be filming weekly and we are going to be uploading and just sharing our insights on what it's like to run a digital product studio. So we're going to be chatting about everything from kind of hiring to cash flow to burnout to how we run a project. And today we are talking about how we win work.
Yep.
It's a big one.
It is a big one.
It's kind of something that every agency needs to do. You have to win work, otherwise
Super
you have
important.
nothing to do. So we have given this a lot of thought over the last kind of 6 to 12 months. As we've been growing, it's really important that we're able to kind of scale our inward funnel as well as our production. And we've taken a lot of advice from a lot of people, and this is kind of where it dilates down to is what we're going to share today. So ultimately, we are going to be chatting about what we do to try and get somebody from meeting them to try and getting them on board as a client.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that as an agency, you should be aware of, and I think in any business, you should be aware of what percentage of your clients are existing and what percentage are new.
Yeah.
So we aim, as an average, our targets are set, we have 30% new turnover compared to 70% existing turnover.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to kind of get that balance. It's possible. We generally do it over a quarter, so we have targets and we do them over a quarter, and it's easier to track that way.
Yeah.
Over a month's mental, because if you have a big new project land, it skews everything out.
Yeah. If you had like a target, what would your ideal number be, do you think?
What are new to returning?
Yeah.
I think it is about 30% new.
Around about there.
Maybe slightly higher. I think if you rely on existing work too much, you can get comfortable.
Yep.
But in the same way, it's satisfying to have somebody retained.
Yeah.
So when that number is high of existing work coming through and they're spending more money with you, it means that you're doing a few things right. They like working with you and they're making money, so they can justify spending more money with you.
I think it's also quite nice because you have like more fresh projects coming in and different areas to work on.
Yeah.
That you might not necessarily have seen before. So it's nice to sort of keep the team on its toes. And
it's true. So in Q2, we did 40% new work to the remaining kind of external, and it's something that we're obviously always reviewing, and it's really hard to kind of keep on top of, because you kind of want that new flow work through, but then it's how do you making sure you're servicing your current clients, which is probably another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But how do we win those new projects? Like, we don't know this person, we meet them, how do we do it?
Yeah, so we've gone through and broken it down into sort of a few different areas.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be best sort of to go through them one by one.
Yep.
So do you want to break them down into sort of the first steps?
Okay, so first of all, you need to meet an interesting person.
Yeah.
So for us, this is often a referral. Our clients really like working with us, which is a good sign, and they will often refer us onto their other friends. It could not be referrals, it could be through a personal network, so it could be through a personal circle, it could be through a business kind of circle. You could also just have it so often I will just reach out to interesting people and be like, just grab a coffee. Yeah. And then the other thing is being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I know in a few weeks we're going to talk about conferences.
Yeah.
And that's really important, but it's not all about conferences. There's other things you can attend. And I think what's important here is when you're first making that connection is, and this is something we kind of harp on a lot about, is how can we make an instant connection with them rather than just going straight in with the sale? I think, especially in today's kind of age, everyone's got really high filters on I'm being sold to.
It's gotten really good. Like, people just naturally do it now. I think even like 5 years ago or whatever, people weren't so immune to it.
Yeah.
But now it's people, like, if you look at your Facebook feed, you just skip all of the ads and everything, and like everything like that. People have just really built up a strong tolerance.
100%. So when I get introduced to that person, or you get introduced to that person, and they're interesting, we feel like there could be a connection there, I will often try and arrange to meet them in person, try and go to them, make it as easy as possible for them, whether that's kind of London or Hampshire generally is the two places for us. Try and get a time, try and meet them I love to hear people's backstory. Why do they start that business?
Yeah.
Like, why? What's the reason? And then it's a case of, okay, how do we start creating value? So this is kind of the next step. At that point, unless they've approached me and go, we need this, I'm not going to approach them and say, I think you need a new website or you need a new app. My next stage would be, okay, how do I start creating value for them? How do I make this relationship fruitful both ways? And that could be just, someone starting a new idea in Southampton and I want to give input into that. It could be that we're happy to make a few tweaks on the website, kind of, help them out if they're struggling.
Sometimes it's anything just as small as like a little bit of advice or just pointing them in the right direction. A lot of businesses just don't know where to get started, or they don't know that they can get a website done quite cheaply in some cases for what they need. And obviously some businesses do need quite a lot of work on their site, but some can just have like a landing page or they can just use
Squarespace.
Like a builder. Exactly. So just being able to point them in that direction and tell them it's really good for them because it builds the trust. And if you're not trying to get money out of them and you're just trying to help them
100%
and get them going, it puts you in a really good place of trust and sort of kinship.
For sure. And you might spend quite a lot of time inputting into this person and you might never see a return on that.
Often.
But you never know who they know.
Told.
So
we've had it where people have come back 6 months, 12 months, and it's come from someone that we spoke to has passed on the details because we gave them some help.
Yeah. So it's worth kind of just making those meaningful relationships. And it helps when you're kind of pushing out, and kind of on a digital point of view. So from a Twitter or LinkedIn, etc., being able to have that. So when you do produce something new, like this video series inside the studio, it's able to go slightly wider because you've opened up that net.
And you've got more people there to share it.
Yeah, so you've met a bunch of people. My next thing would be you've got to follow them up.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be in touch with them, every so often. And it doesn't even need to be salesy. Just
checking in.
How was summer for you? Did you manage to get away? You're looking forward to Christmas? Those kind of things. And while some people might find that annoying to receive, generally I just get a good conversation out of somebody. So I use a big Trello board as a CRM system, and I'll have a few people which I'm trying to keep in touch with, and I'll set a date. So remind me to speak to John in 3 months, and he'll just ping me an email because my memory's bad, really bad. So I think you've met that person. How do you kind of keep in touch with them when you're not naturally crossing paths?
Especially if it's someone who's like started a new business or something, being able to just check in, seeing how they're getting on. Like that opens up dialogue for potentially work or just to continue the relationship, to see how you can potentially provide some more value. It might be that they're just stuck on some really easy thing. They're looking for an accountant.
That is a classic one. I seem to refer accountants a lot in my day-to-day conversations.
We need to start getting some commission on that.
And then kind of, so you've got that phase, you've got a good relationship with this person, you may be chatting 3-4 times a year. And then they might approach and go, actually, Dan, we do need a new website now. Can you come and advise us on this? A great way to jump into that conversation is, why don't we help you write the brief? It's generally easier to win a brief if you've written the brief. Plus also people who work in industry which isn't digital don't know how to write a brief. In the same way I wouldn't know how to design a house and appoint a builder. It's sometimes good to bring somebody into that process who does.
We can always tell whenever we get a brief through if it's been written by someone technical, because there's sort of methodology behind it and everything's sort of structured. It's not just incohesive thoughts a lot of the time.
100%.
Whereas sometimes it can just be like, I have this massive idea and no scope to it or anything.
No, I definitely agree. And so we've got to that stage where they've kind of approached you and you're talking about projects now. And I think for us at this stage, it's a case of, okay, what meetings, what workshops, what calls we need to put in place to kind of ensure that we know what we need from the customer to be able to price it and then hopefully deliver it on time. And we're not going to chat about delivery of projects so much today, but that's kind of how we would get to that stage. Just generally our most common way of kind of winning a new project would be to go from meeting somebody interesting, of being referred or meeting them out
Yeah.
on the street per se, and then keeping in touch with them, and then eventually something drops and they go, oh, I do know a web developer.
Yeah.
I know those guys, and they seem to know what they're talking about. They're constantly talking about what they love,
Yeah.
and it just kind of clicks.
Yeah, we've been really lucky in that a lot of our clients are starting new businesses and they're incredibly passionate about it, and you can see when they come in and talk to us about it, and they just need a little bit of guidance just to how to get those ideas into actual physical existence. And it's incredible when you see that coming through and they're like, this is this idea that I've been working on for years. It's just really exciting, I think, for both of us.
100%. And then we have a process which is after the project's finished, it's then they turn from being a new client to an existing client, and there's a different process for them.
Yeah.
So then it's a case of how do we follow them up every 1, 3, 6, 12, 24 months to ensure that we're still trying to give them value. And that might be let's look at the user data together and work out if people are using the features you think they're using, or have you thought about integrating this feature? And it's not necessarily about trying to get more money out of them. Ultimately, we want our clients to be making as much money as possible.
Yeah.
So then it makes only sense for them to come back around and do a round 2 of development, or jump onto a retainer, or those kind of things. I mean, we were chatting earlier about what happens when a client approaches you and they give you an idea which is going to be expensive.
Yeah, so sometimes it's a matter of they'll ask for a feature and they might want this really complex feature that they might not realise is really complex when they're asking for it. And it just doesn't make financial sense to do that.
Yep.
It might be that we can come up with something that's much cheaper, or something that's already sort of there that we can just repurpose. It might be that the data's already there and we can just give them an export of the data or something, and save them like a ton of money and a load of time, because they don't need it to be automated at the moment. It could be this thing that we can do in like an hour instead of building it and it takes weeks potentially.
And some of that is the fact that as a team, we are all involved in running the business, and we have other products and so on. So we're all at that kind of smart creative level where we're used to business and technology and creativity kind of coming together. So when someone approaches you and, like you said, they have an idea and you kind of think, I don't know if they're actually going to see a return on that idea. It's good that we can challenge them on that, because we might have already done it before. So sometimes, for instance, they really want this big elaborate checkout process on their e-commerce store. You kind of think, you're only just starting. Maybe if we just start with something that's kind of predefined and kind of work up to it, because it's good for us to be able to give experience of how the client could spend their money more wisely in those early days especially.
Or it might even be that like they want a whole custom sort of e-commerce store when all they need is a Shopify site or a Squarespace site
100%.
or anything like that. Like the tools are there.
We
don't need to build these things from scratch. And that one little niche thing that you want to add to it,
can it wait?
Can it wait and save you tens of thousands of pounds?
For sure.
It's I think that's a really important skill to have within the team. And when we were talking about this earlier as well, we were talking because the team's based around being people who are creatives and people who sort of are all technically minded and all have worked in this area. Not just salespeople. We're not just trying to drain people of money.
Everybody on team can work on production. So literally, apart from myself, everybody else on the team is doing output every day. They're either designing or they're developing. So at the moment we are all developers apart from Sarah, who's our designer. Which means when you pick up the phone and speak to someone, you speak to somebody who quite likely is going to be speaking, working on your project. Which means we don't. It narrows that gap when we're having those conversations about what we can deliver and what we'd like to. So there's not a big expectation gap because we're the ones who have to build it. And it just helps in so many ways having technical people
there.
On the phone writing the proposals in the meetings. And we're really fortunate that we've got a team which are able to sit down and write code all day and then jump into a meeting the next day and be able to hold their own. Which I don't think lots of people have. We're quite fortunate that we found and hired the right people to be able to fill those roles.
It has been extremely lucky, I think. Or not even luck, it's very much down to crafting of the team.
For sure.
but I think having that skill and ability is just vital. Yeah, it massively helps.
It does. Okay, cool. So let's wrap this up into a nice little package. So how do we even work? Number one is we try and meet interesting people. Either we'll go places where we'll meet them, or we get referred to them, and the conversations start.
Yeah.
Number two.
So we also then make sure that we're fostering the relationship. So we're not just trying to get money out of people. We're trying to give back. So even if that work isn't there initially, we're making sure that we're fostering a relationship and providing value to them so that they'll come back or refer someone else later.
Yeah.
And then number three?
Number three would be, so at that point we've possibly won a project and we've delivered that successfully. And then we would go on to, we need to follow up those customers regularly. Because ultimately we want a bunch of partners rather than just a bunch of clients in a spreadsheet. And we want to be able to keep adding, giving them value, pointing them in the right direction, helping them. So ultimately our partners are making money, so then they come back to us and are up for a phase 2, phase 3, and so on.
Yeah, I think what it really comes down to most simply is just treating your existing customers really well. And a lot of the time they'll provide new business for us.
Exactly,
whether it's through themselves or for a referral. I think that's about as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
Treat them good and they'll treat you good back.
Exactly. It's good.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little insight into how we win new work here at Steadfast. We're going to be back every week until Christmas, digging into what it's like to run a digital studio.
Great.
So we'll see you next week.
See you then.
Cheers.
Bye.